Okay, so we've had some major technical difficulties, but I will tell you the principles of it. You've missed out on a really big chunk. The first principle is desire, and that is like you eat, sleep, breathe. This is like an obsession kind of desire. Principle number 2 is faith, but it's not necessarily religion. It's spiritual, more faith in you that you can do this. It's so important. And then principle number 3 is autosuggestion. And this is reading your statement. I have my statement, Dawn, that I read every morning and every night before I go to bed. And it's what we want. You focus on this and keeping that conversation in your head focused. Keep me oh, here we go. And then so far we talked about the 4th principle. Oh, now we're going to talk about the 4th principle. And this is the last segment, Dawn. So we need to go through these really quickly, okay? As quickly as we possibly can.
Or leave her a voicemail at 407-373-5959. Once again, here's Lillian.
And welcome back to the Lillian McDermott Radio Show, where we always learn and grow together. And today's teacher is Don Green. He is the executive director and CEO of the last 18 years at Napoleon Hill Foundation. The Napoleon Hill Foundation is doing great things in the world. They just re-released their original text for Think and Grow Rich, and the 7th caller or texter will win a copy of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. It's interesting because I've been familiarized with the editors or the revised version so that it makes it modern. And it's so funny when I hear editor's comment, I feel like he's just like, kind of like, let me tell you a secret. But it brings it to today's terminology. But let me tell you, this book is amazing. If you want to protect your thoughts, if you want something and you just don't know how to do it, this is a step-by-step manual. And Napoleon Hill wrote it in 1937. And it took him 20 years to do the research before he wrote the book. So now we're looking at 1917, if I did my math correctly. Okay, so we went through the first through 3 principles. We're a little behind here, Don. So 4th principle is specialized knowledge, using your knowledge, not acquiring it. So why don't you share a little bit about that?
Well, I would use myself as an example. I think it's easier. I started out in the finance business and at the bottom, which was in collections. I determined that I would become an expert in the field. And of course, when I started out, I thought it was just learning all the legal aspects of it, what it took to get judgments, how dealing with bankruptcy and all the other aspects of it. But I learned a lot going along the way was that if I learned to communicate with these people, that I was on their side, I was really wanting to help them. I was not being hard to scare them into paying or creating fear, so forth, but a genuine desire to help them find a solution to their problem, where it was helping them with a budget, redoing their debt or whatever. So you become an expert. You know, for example, someone once said, I read, if you woke up one morning and said, I would like to become the world's foremost authority on frogs, within a few short period of time, you could gather all the knowledge that everybody had and combine it together into your head, and you could become the world's foremost authority on certain animal or ever what.
Sure.
So it only makes common sense that we have specialized knowledge in the area of our expertise, whether it be medical or writing or whatever, that we'll stand a chance of having much better results. Just like you, I'm sure you study your profession, which is, if you want success, that's the start. That's the place to be, is to learn what you can about it. Because, for example, the book business, you can't just learn the book business because it's changing every day.
Yes.
When I started at publications, there was no internet, there was no ebooks, and I mean, in 18 years period of time, it's unbelievable the changes come about. You not only got to get specialized knowledge, but you got to keep up with it, because
yes,
forever changing. You can't just, as they say, rest on your laurels. You can't learn and say, "Oh, I've got it all down pat." You got to stay up with it through the current events, reading the material that comes out on what you're involved in, and stay up on it, because things change much faster, especially in the communication field, than they once did.
Yeah.
And it's a necessity if you want to have maximum success. is to develop specialized knowledge.
Yeah, I say this all the time, and it's so important. We don't breathe one time and say, "Oof, we're done breathing." This is a constant growth. This is a constant need that we have. And so it's important that when it comes to specialized knowledge that we stay current. I love the fact that doctors, teachers, and there's certain attorneys, they have to get CEUs, they're continuing education. And you just can't just say, okay, I graduated in 19 whatever, and all of a sudden you still are, you want that current knowledge. So that is a very important principle. Now, the fifth principle, what we're going to do is, because we had a little bit of technical difficulty and some problems with the recording, after the show, we're going to continue whatever we left off in, but there are 13 principles. So principle number 5 is imagination. What can you say about imagination?
I absolutely love this one. There's probably at least wrote about it. I read a book by an Indian author. I can't even pronounce the name. It's called Creative Visualization. And I liken it to a vision, and not getting religious, but there's a verse by Job that says, without a vision, my people perish. Mm-hmm. In other words, I said, we need to see where we're going to go before we get there. Yes. In our mind. People say, I'll believe it when I see it. They've got it just backwards. Yes. We have to see it first. We see it in our mind. And it's only a difference. It's taking a trip. If you and I were going, we was on the East Coast, we was going West Coast. Mm-hmm. We may not know all the steps, but we have to imagine it where we're going, or otherwise we never start. And it's what separates us from animals, is imagination, and not being able to see what can be rather than what is. If you're in poverty, you see yourself being in riches. You have to learn to see things before they get here, so you'll know the path to take to get where you want to go. And it's just that simple. And you can call it starting out daydreaming, or what you want to call it. But it's simply having an inner path in your brain of what you want to do and what you want to accomplish. And I think it's of utmost important. And it yields so much. There's so many examples. I mean, the guy that took the example of a cookie and ice cream couldn't make up his mind. He puts them together and you get an Eskimo pie, and the guy makes millions of dollars. He didn't except thinking cookies and ice cream would go together good. Yeah. It's a very simple thing, but he created that in his mind before he ever created it in fact. And it's just a wonderful tool. And I said, it separates us from animals.
Very good. Very good. And so I love the imagination as well, because we can see there's certain things that we see that's already made, that somebody else created, but that we can improve upon it. And it's still a new invention. It's still a new creation. And I love that. He takes ice cream and a cookie, put it together. I mean, that's what they did with Reese's peanut butter cups too. You put the peanut butter in the chocolate and peanut butter, and bam, you've got a best-selling. Not that I recommend ever eating a Reese's Pieces, because there's other ways to eat sweets without being loaded with sugar. Okay, so let's move on to the 6th principle, which I think is very important as well, is organized planning. If you don't have a plan, then you're just going to be a dreamer. So share a little bit about the organized planning for 6.
Organized planning, it is very important. I said, we could, making it simple, if I was doing finance, I'm working on a book, the 4 steps. I said, to avoid poverty, and I don't mean to brag, but I've read every book I could find on poverty. Wow. And basically, poverty is single women living alone with children with no visible means of support. I mean, in other words, there's not anything wrong with being single or being a mother, but if you're not a school teacher, a nurse, a decent paying job, you're and I said, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. It's getting a good education, job, fall in love, get married, and have children. Don't get them out of order. It's called planning. You don't do one of them till the other one's been taken care of. Otherwise, in the case of poverty, you mess up your life and you mess up the life of the children. It's off to a bad start. So planning is absolute necessity, or what the old saying we said, don't get the cart before the horse. And it's simply taking the steps in order to need to be taken. And 1, 2, 3, 4. in the right order with the right amount of time and energy spent on each one of them to go to the next step.
Yeah, that example is a little tough because there's more than reasons why people become single moms too. But that's
it is. It's way beyond me. I just use it for example. But
yeah.
he also said on the planning part he said it was necessary to start from where you was. We don't know all the answers, but the main thing is getting started.
Very good. Very good. And you know what? This is what we're going to do. So I'm going to encourage you, if you haven't done so already, become a subscriber at whenyouneedafriend.com, because we're going to continue the conversation of principles 7 through 13 after we go off the air, because because of all the technical things that occurred on the show, we're going to make the best of it, at least have a good YouTube video that you can follow up on it. But the book is Think and Grow Rich. The seventh caller or texter, 407-373-5959. Don, thank you so much for being a part of the show, and I am really grateful to continue this conversation off the air. And to you, my listening friends, just remember, it's time to think and grow rich. This is Lillian McDermott wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job. Okay, so we're off the air, but if you have some time, let's go over really quickly, 7 through 13. Do you have the time?
We'll take good time for you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So what we missed was desire, faith, auto-suggestion, specialized knowledge, because the cameras wouldn't go on. And we had some technical difficulties with my computer, but we're now focused on what we want, which is the end of these principles, getting to the end of these principles. So we got through desire first. Second principle is faith. Third principle is auto-suggestion, which is the conversation in your head. You said that beautifully, Don. I love how you said the most important information that you could, most important conversation that you could ever have is the one within your head, the one that you say to yourself. Love that. Okay, so fourth is specialized knowledge. I believe that we started recording at that point. The fifth one is principle. The fifth principle is imagination. Sixth principle is organized planning. Seventh principle is decision. Can you share a little bit about decision?
Yes, it seems lots of people have a hard time making a decision because they're trying to calculate what the outcome is going to be, and sometimes the decision doesn't necessarily mean yes. Sometimes it could be no. I said, of course, I invest, being a banker, and I've done lots and lots of different businesses, from land development to spring water to dry clean, lots of things. But I've learned also that sometimes the decision to do nothing is the best decision at all. Mm-hmm. We don't always have to say yes. Sometimes the decision is no, but make a decision once you have the necessary facts, and then live with that decision until you either prove yourself right or prove yourself wrong. But some people, lots of people, it's like they're sitting on the fence. They're not going either way. And it's just a necessity to make a decision. Hopefully most of them is right. But if you make 10 decisions and one of them is bad, say in the stock market, you're going to get a pretty good average. It's better to be 9 out of 10 than it is 0 out of 10, because you have to make decisions. And some people simply, they're guessing the consequences. Well, it don't go right. My wife said so. Somebody said so, and nobody's ever done this. I remember reading about, I actually have the clipping at Napoleon Hill where he covered the flight of the Wright brothers. And he said there was a farmer standing there. He says, that dang thing won't fly. He said, if God wanted you to have wings, wanted you to fly, he'd give you wings. But the Wright brothers, their decision was that they could fly an aircraft heavier than, and they stuck with it until they made a decision. They could easily make a decision after a few hours. This thing won't go. Just a bad decision. But it's making a decision, and if you think you're right, sticking with it until you get the results that you expected. But so many people, they can't do. It starts out when they're young. They can't decide to go to college. They can't decide what they want to do. And it's okay at an early age. But believe me, by the time you're 50 or 60, you ought to find a passion about something or other. You
That's
ought
right.
to find, if you're going to have a decent life. And I think the earlier you can decide, the better off you are, because you got a lot more years to
That's right.
live.
That's right. That's right. You know, I think it's the fear of making a mistake.
Oh, it is.
And I always, and this is how I view things, and perhaps I'll give you some of my wisdom here, and share what I've learned, and that there are no mistakes. There are opportunities to grow. And in the book, it's amazing how they're talking about how, uh, not Emerson, who the light bulb, 10,000 times. 10,000 times. He did it took him 10,000 tries to create the light bulb as we know it today.
Now, there were 10,000 lessons of what didn't work.
That's right. That's right. 9,999 of what didn't work, and that one time. And so, and so even like as when I prepare food, if I make something that's raw or vegan, or if I delete one ingredient, now I have a new dish. Or if I add a different ingredient, I have a new dish. So even though that 9,999, he may have created something else, like they talk about in the book, the Post-it notes that was a failure for glue, and the Velcro, and how Velcro, all these things, that there's so many different ways that we can look at mistakes. Mistakes to me are growth opportunities. And and people ask me as a life coach all the time, I just don't want to make a mistake. How do I know this is the right choice for me? And I always say, because you made it. Whatever choice you make is the right choice for you. Then you can always tweak it.
Absolutely. I taught finance and invest in the stock market. My wife, being ultra conservative, she had a fear of the stock market. And I won her over. Finally, I told her, I said, Phil, honey, I've learned the biggest risk in life is to take no risk at all. Mm-hmm. Plain and simple. And we have to take risk. And we do it when we're young. I mean, we're not scared of nothing, But as we get, I guess, as we get older, we simply have trouble making decisions, being too conservative. I mean, you can go either way, but it's making an educated decision and sticking with it, and it's important.
Very good.
Yeah, biggest risk.
Decision is so important. Not to decide is a decision too. Absolutely. And that's not a decision you want. You don't want the outcome of not making a decision, although that's a learning experience too. So we'll move on to principle number 8, which is persistent to be willing. It's about being willing. So share a little bit about that, Don.
Well, I can give you an excellent example. In Think and Grow Rich, you read the story of R.U. Darby quitting 3 feet from gold.
Oh, I love that story. Why don't you share that story?
Well, the Darby, he goes out west and he strikes gold and he's doing real well, and all of a sudden it runs out, and he just up and quits, sold the equipment for junk, moved back. But now there's a whole lot more to the story than what's in the book. In 1933, I have a half a page ad. He came back to Maryland, and he sponsored Napoleon Hill in his seminars. Mm-hmm. And he went in the insurance business. He said he learned from that 3 feet from gold to never take no for an answer when he's trying to sell insurance policy. Mm-hmm. So we have the ad that's dated 1933. That's when he told Hill that story, and then he put it in a 1937 book. But then from reading that story, I had an idea, let's do a book on persistence. Mm-hmm. So I had the idea to do a book called 3 Feet from Gold. Mm-hmm. And I was selling a lot of books to a book buyer, and he said, do me a favor. He said, see if you can work something with this guy, Greg Reed's having it kind of tough, and said he's an aspiring writer. And I got with Greg, and I said, here's a story, 3 feet from gold. We're going to interview these people on persistence. Well, we got about 80 pages, and we hadn't got a decent deal on the thing. And so I had been in contact with Sharon Lecter, who wrote the Rich Dad, Poor Dad books. She wrote 14 of them. Sold 30 million copies. She just loved Napoleon Hill, and she said she'd like to have a chance to work with her. I said, let's finish this book on 3 Feet from Gold, and it's a bestseller. And that's all it is a story on persistence. It's not giving up. And it's you can't overemphasize it. I read Steve Jobs' biography, and he said of all the qualities he possessed, he thought the one that had helped him the most was persistence. In other words, having this maybe crazy idea in the back of your mind saying, let's make this thing work. And he went over and over. Billy Ray Cyrus, a musician, I read his book. He's not far from the area, little Miley's father. Mm-hmm. And he got kicked out of college for having a stray dog in his room, going to school on a scholarship. But he said Dr. Bailey, he doesn't tell who Dr. Bailey was, gave him the book. And he read Think and Grow Rich. And he read that chapter on persistence. And he said it was like God spoke to him and said, Billy Ray, buy you a guitar and start you a band. And he said they got up to making $50 a night, rough places, nightclubs, rough joints, fights, guys throwing beer bottles. But we know the rest of it was a song he came out with, the little girls like to dance to. And then, of course, we know about Little Miley. He tells about Little Miley. He actually called her Smiley, and he dropped the S off of it when she went in show business. But he wrote a whole bit on persistence. And then you read Steve Harvey. He says he's read the book 25 times. Draymond John. The list goes on and on and on. And in all of them, people talk about being persistent, having this passion, something or other. If they use persistence, and that separates the winners from losers. Is persistence.
Absolutely. The story of the 3 feet from gold, it doesn't, you guys have to read the story. Basically, this man thought that he knew exactly where the gold was. And this is, they talk about specialized knowledge. That was another story of specialized knowledge and persistent. It's like a combination of the two. When the gold, he went and got some investors to invest on the equipment. And when he went back to get the gold, because he struck gold, apparently because he didn't seek specialized knowledge, he missed the mark. And so they thought the gold had dried up. But someone else who had the specialized knowledge claimed that once the guy gave up. Was it Emerson? What was his name?
The
guy that gave up. Darby, who ended up becoming a major insurance salesman because of that experience. That, talk about, fear of failure or making a decision. So what ended up happening, this other person who had the knowledge, the expertise, the special knowledge, knew that at a certain level you have to turn a certain way, and he was 3 feet from gold, and the other guy ended up getting all the riches because of the specialized knowledge. So this was a lesson in persistent determination and specialized knowledge. I love all the stories in the book.
He got an engineer to help him. And
that's right.
Yeah. It's a great story on persistence.
Yeah. So the one guy stopped 3 feet from gold, and the other guy was able to claim the prize. Okay. So let's move on here. Principle number 9 is the power of the mastermind. Surround yourself with like-minded people, which what we talk about on the Lillian McDermott radio show. Go ahead, Don.
Yeah. Of course, he credits this to Andrew Carnegie. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's other examples, but I guess that's as good because Carnegie's story coming over from Scotland as about a 12-year-old boy with a very, very limited education. He developed ability to get along with people, but he started in U.S. Steel. He acquired different people, chemists, lawyers, and accountants, and so forth. And he had the ability to get along with them, and create this mastermind group. And he explains it. They work in perfect harmony. He gave an example of hiring a French chemist who was the brightest guy he could find, but he had trouble of communicating with the other people, and he replaced him. Mm-hmm. So the perfect harmony was an absolute must, but everyone should be contributing. In other words, it's not your relatives or your best friends or what have you, but it's people that will add something to. If you got 2 people, you get a better thing than if you only got one. You got you got two minds creating something larger than an individual was. And sometimes people have different expertise. Some of them in land development, some of them may be finance. For example, we started a cable TV company one time. My wife says, "I can't believe it." I said, "Why?" She said, "You don't watch television. You're sitting there reading. You don't watch television." I said, "But I looked at the financial statement of a large company, and they're in trouble. They borrowed too much money, and they keep raising everybody's cable rates." And I said, "You can't have a monopoly on it. We can put the money into it, charge half what they're charging. Won't have to advertise, and everybody sign up, or at least that's my belief." We did one town. We did a second town, and all the time they're trying to buy us out, threaten us, whatever, because we were taking all their customers. And we knew they couldn't lower their rates, so I said, lowered them all the way across the state, because we were regulated by the Federal Trade Commission, Federal Communication Commission. And so we did one town, two towns, and we're going to the third and fourth one. And they offered us so much money after 12 years. He said, "Guys, this looks like a wonderful opportunity," and we sold out. But it was getting people together. For example, we had to get a guy who we call it strung cable. In other words, had it installed. It's not that much to it, but I knew absolutely nothing. I can't use a DVD player, for example. I just
but hey, you knew how to give me control of being the host of when we got off the air. So you know enough to get to that next place.
Well, but we have to use other people. I mean, and everybody has to contribute something, but also someone has to have something that they're expecting from it. And it may not be monetary. There's a lot of organizations and things you can be involved in that people just want to do good for the community. They're wanting to, they don't need the money. That people have different desires, what they're getting from the thing. But everyone should be contributing, but also everyone should be receiving something other. Otherwise, why should they give up their time and effort?
Yeah.
So everyone should benefit in every what form that they're seeking. But it just creates tremendous opportunities by guys sitting down, even if on a golf course, said, "Did you ever think about doing this?" And so forth, and sitting down and discussing it. It's because two or more minds are going to create a whole lot more than just what.
Absolutely. I always say that. I alone am an individual, but with everybody else in a group, we are an overwhelming majority. We are critical mass.
Well,
the example they use on the book is Henry Ford. Henry Ford hired all the people that knew what they needed to do. And he may not have had the expertise, he may not have the knowledge, but he trusted everybody on his team to create the V8 engine. Is that what he did? Was it the V8?
Yeah, well, yes, the VD said it couldn't be done. He said,
"Yeah, no one said, everybody said it couldn't be done, and they worked on it, but he hired the right people." So I love that image. It's like,
he won a libel suit, excuse me.
Yes.
Paper. But we included that in a recent movie, that trial. There's a movie, Think and Grow Rich Legacy. It's on DVD and it's available.
What's it called?
It's called Think and Grow Rich Legacy.
Oh, really? It's a DVD?
Yeah. It's on DVD. Yeah, it's done real well. It's not in the theaters yet, but the fact is, I got a small part in it.
You do? I want a copy.
I'll send you one.
Yeah, send it to Ashley. Yeah, or you can send it to me. Actually, she'll get you the address. Okay, so let's move on because I've got I know that you have things to do and I've got meetings to go to, but I wanted to go through the Think and Grow Rich. So principle number 10 is transmutation. And it's about being charming and convincing. Those are my takes for it. So what do you say about transmutation?
Well, I think some people, just the word sex, I think, sounds bad to some people, but I know that's how we all got here. And but it is important because it starts off, it's a form of energy we have. And we have to learn to transfer that same energy into things that's worthwhile. In other words, there's the book Outwitting the Devil, which is a bestseller for 8 years now. The family opposed it for the simple reason it discussed the devil.
Wow.
And the devil is just a man-made fear. And to say we're not going to discuss this 10th principle, you can't avoid it. But he goes on to explain lots of people have a higher degree of sexual energy than others. But he's saying in the same aspect, whether it be Churchill or ever who, that energy can be put towards solution to world's problems or for other accomplishment. It's not that hard for me to understand. We basically have a tendency to get what we put our passion and energy into in some form or another, and it's just a matter of directing it in other areas other than just sex. And I think it's a good subject and worth discussion.
Yeah.
We can apply that energy to other.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was referring as using your sex appeal, using your your charm to convince and be engaging, and so it's not at all was the intention to use sex to be convincing, but it was like it's using your sexuality to convince and be charming.
It's a part of your personality.
It is.
I mean, this stuff, and it can be used to our advantages, which we need all the good things on our side that we can use.
Absolutely. I understand that principle. I understand it. Okay, principle number 11 is the subconscious mind, which we talk about on the Lillian McDermott radio show quite a bit. Go ahead.
Well, I wish we had Dr. J.B. Hill's grandson. He spoke on that. We did a seminar here, a 4-day seminar here at the university in June, back in.
Do you think we can get him for the show?
He's brisk. Yeah, JB is wonderful. He's a full-time practitioner, but he, of course, he and I discuss this a lot. It's probably hard of a day. He was interesting. He spent 23 years in the Marine Corps, and then he comes out and thinks life's not complete. So he goes to medical school, and he's a practicing physician up in West Virginia, which is his home area.
Wow.
Very, very interesting story. But he's a wonderful spoken.
And he's Napoleon Hill's grandson, you said?
He's his grandson, yes.
Wow.
Yes. And he's the most active of all the family. But the family's interesting. One of JB's sisters is a pharmacist. Her husband was a surgeon. He's dead. But she had 4 boys, and 3 of them are doctors, and one of them's a banker. One family. Well, it's not too bad. But I know I attended, the family invited me probably 10 years ago, 15. I went to the burial of JB's father, which is David Hill. He lived to be 92. He was retired from the military. He was West Virginia's most decorated soldier in World War II and the Korean War.
Wow.
Very interesting. But JB is really into this, and I can, I guess, make this statement was I've got a friend who's involved with NASA in the space, and I told him really the latest undiscovered territory is the human mind. It's such an important subject. You got 2 children seem to be raised absolutely the same in the same family, same circumstances.
Happens all the time.
What makes one of them turn into be a doctor and the other end up in prison? Mm-hmm. And so the human mind is it's really something to be discovered. I think it goes back to some of that. What I said was, what do we say when we talk to ourselves? What are a suggestion? We can become sick with fear, which is all imagined. Mm-hmm. But we do know the mind works funny. I mean, they're funny. We learn by repeating things over and over. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've been guilty. I know I have. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I will, from my home to the college, I'll be going to town, but every morning I'm cutting in here, and sometimes I might cut in here when I meant to go to the bank first because I'm not thinking, because I've planted that into my subconscious mind to let it come apart. For example, Lily, how important it is if someone said, Lily, what's 7 times 7? You say 49. You said it so many times when you was young, maybe 5th grade, till it become a part of your subconscious and you can recall it. And sometimes we can't recall it, but that's the reason. We learn by repeating stuff. And that's the reason people ask me about reading the book once or reading. I said, I read it once, should I read it again? I said, well, maybe you're smarter than I am. But the thing of it is, if you read it when you was 20, you're not the same person when you're 38.
You're absolutely right.
Other influence, other conversations you've had, and other experiences you've had. So the material's not changed, just like the material's the same as it's always been.
Yeah.
We've changed.
Yeah.
We have other things. But it's a very important subject, and I think we can use it to our advantage, or we can use it to our disadvantage. I use sometimes in speaking, I've used examples of the little boy going by the graveyard at night, and he gets his in his mind that something's wrong. And by the time he gets home, he can't speak, and he imagined that something got a hold of him, and his shirt collar is turned up against his neck, and that's all that happened to him. But his heart, his eyes, his breathing, everything reflected because he planted that into his subconscious.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Something about cemeteries that can be scary, and I'm sure we'll learn more and more about it. But it's an absolutely important subject, and volumes and volumes.
Yeah. And we talk about it on the show. We talk about the subconscious mind, and Bruce Lipton was instrumental in my learning about the subconscious mind and how we record everything from birth, and any trauma that gets recorded. It gets actually recorded. They've gone beyond it and said, it's not just recorded in the subconscious mind. It gets recorded into the white blood cell, and it's just incredible. And the good news about the subconscious mind is that we can rewrite the programs that we've recorded. And so that's the principle. Number 11 is the subconscious mind. This is so important. The mind, that every single principle works with one another, almost like a tapestry, and it creates a beautiful vision, which is what our vision is. So the subconscious mind. Let's move on to the brain. Let's talk about the brain, which is the 12th principle. What about the brain, Don?
Well, he of course, in his thing, he talks about, he gets into Marconi and so forth, of how things are transmuted. He talked about gates, and he talked about the human brains, and is both a broadcasting and receiving station for the vibration of thought. And I know he talked about Edison. He said he would be thinking and using his mind thinking about a problem, and it seemed like the answers just come out of the air. In other words, we call it infinite intelligence, or call it like
infinite intelligence, yes.
But that I think that puts us on a higher plane of being able to use that. I mean, I guess you can heal with Edgar Cant's. You can almost get into the psychic phenomenon, or what you want to call it. But I know it happens too much to us to just be a coincidence. I think there is no coincidences. For example, if you got a child or something, and I've had it happen to me when I'm walking, and I'm thinking I can talk to my daughter while I'm walking, and stick my hand in my pocket to get my phone out, and the phone ring, and it's her. I mean, it's like we're both thinking about each other.
Yeah.
And too many of those things happen for it not to be something out there we don't have to fully understand.
And, and 81 years ago, for him to have this insight, to make it part of the principles, is, that, our brains call out for each other, everything about ourselves reaches, there's a unspoken communication that's happening. It's a frequency that we know now as frequency. And so when we're thinking about people, they're thinking about us, and then you get this text and go, you know what, if I say that I've been thinking about them, they're going to think this is BS. But the reality is we're magnets, and we need to be aware of this frequency that we emit and that we receive. So, and then the 13th principle, the sixth sense. Intuition, gut feeling. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, I think they all tie their things in together, and so much of it is connected with their brain. I was to tell you a story. Was my mom was probably about 90s, and she went to the old family church, and of course, it was a reunion. They had asked me to speak about my brother. My brother passed away,
Oh.
and I didn't know anything about the church. My mom went there. I noticed there was people buried there that fought in the Civil War.
Would you move closer to the mic, Don, so we can hear?
I went to church with her, and there's a little country church way back in the mountains. And of course, I sat through the services and so forth. And so after the service, I said, "Mom, what's wrong with the church?" She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "I got a feeling in there. There's something wrong." She said, "What do you mean something's wrong?" I said, "There's just something in the air. I mean, nobody said anything, but there's just something in the air." And so in a few minutes, she said, of course, I didn't know anything about the church. I hadn't been there probably 50 years. And,
wow.
And she said, "Well, actually, they are." She said, I said, what is it? She said, "Well, the old pastor got too old, and I think even he passed away. Well, some of the people in the church wanted his son to be the pastor, father. And some of them thought he didn't have an experience and wanted somebody else. Those people were sending signals out. I mean, I could just feel it. Nobody said anything. You could just feel there was something that was going on." And she said, she just went on and she couldn't get on. "I just don't understand how you know." I said, "Do you talk to somebody?" I said, "Mom, I don't know. I ain't know nobody in there except you." I said, "I never seen people. I don't even remember seeing them before." I said, "But I could tell there was something in the air and that there's something that was wrong." And she said, "Yeah, they sure are." She just couldn't get over how I felt that way.
We all have that infinite intuition. We have that infinite intelligence that we just need to allow. Intuition, gut feelings. We are. I believe that we're the only species that goes against our intuition. I mean, look at the animals. The animals in nature, they know when an animal is going to attack them. They know. You see these nature films, and there's a deer drinking water in the pond, and all of a sudden the deer goes, "Look out!" It's like we have those feelings, and we go towards danger. A deer or an animal, if you're looking at these nature movies, they'll just they'll say, something's wrong, and then they leave the situation. And then next 5 seconds later, you see a tiger coming in. So we're not in tune with that anymore. So it's so important. This sixth sense, this intuition, this gut feeling, that whatever you want to call it, that we tune into it, because it's out there for us, and we all are capable of this, right?
Yeah, and I think of all these things that you and I have discussed, I think we can develop them. We can improve on them with an open mind, and we try, and we listen to others and acquire knowledge, because we're going to discover on and on about the human mind and so forth, the subconscious and so forth, and how it because something up and causes us to act like we do, or sometimes it's react. And it's to me, it's more important in space, though I love the idea of going to space. But I think it's a terrific topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Don, I am so grateful to you. I apologize for all the technical difficulties that we had today, but there's a reason for it. We need to continue having this conversation from start to finish on the air. I want to remind my viewers, Think and Grow Rich, this is the original unedited text from 1937. And I'm on my third time with this book. And I love how this was important to Napoleon Hill for men and women who resent poverty. And so if you resent poverty, the way to think about it is you want to embrace financial freedom, or you want to embrace financial wealth, or not worry about, instead of saying not worry about money, you just want to embrace abundance in every aspect of our lives, mind, body, spirit. Thank you so much, Dawn, for your wisdom and for sharing today on the show. And I look forward to having this conversation again.
Well, I love what I'm doing. And so if we can do it again sometime, just let me know.
Absolutely. And thank you for watching today. I hope that there's been a little bit of truth that will help you, will trigger you in your journey to thinking and growing rich. We'll see you soon.